you're going to blend into the crowd and you're not going to convert with a very intentional audience, I can almost guarantee you that all you're going to be doing on Facebook and Instagram is wasting your money, and nobody's going to convert, because that's a much harder audience to convert, because they're not there looking for properties. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore. We're back with a Whiskey Wednesday episode with my main man, Dave Savolich. What's up, brother?
Hey, how you doing,
Ready to get going today?
You said it, dude.
All right,
let's get after it.
Let's dive in. Let's dive in. So, guys, those of you that are new to our Vacation Rental Revolution podcast, these are our Whiskey Wednesday episodes where we dive into some things going on in our world, some topics, the hot topics that we're finding in the short-term rental world, and then we answer some questions that you guys send in. So, if you are an avid listener or a new listener, know that you can send those questions in to support@bodyssey.com. We'll make sure that we cover them and those topics on an upcoming episode. So, Dave, what are our topics today?
A little bit light on your whiskey today, and
yeah,
a little bit full on my Coke Zero.
It's one of those, it's early in the morning, and I don't typically start my day with whiskey, contrary to popular belief. And so I just have a little bit. It's like it's just a little, half a finger pour,
wet your whistle. I put a little extra in today. I need a little extra caffeine.
Yeah, you're still in the morning caffeine section.
Yeah, I need to get after it today. Yeah. So anyways.
What I needed is to have my coffee and maybe a little Kahlua for Whiskey Wednesday today, because it's early today for us. So,
well, let's dive in. So today's agenda or topic is going to be mostly around marketing. Okay. So direct marketing, marketing your property, creating direct marketing leads and things like that. We have a couple of really good questions, and they're kind of they're also related to marketing. So I think it's a good topic. A lot of people ask questions. Yep. I think a lot of people believe or think that they need to dive into the marketing side before they actually should. And I get why. They're anxious. They feel like, hey, I want to book my property as much as I can. I want to get as much demand. But you said something at our Charlotte meeting last week, and I want to kind of dive into it a little bit. And I thought it was pretty profound. Is we were talking about marketing strategies, and then we had a new member there, and he was literally just made an offer on his property, and they were about to close on it. And he really started to dive in on Facebook ads and questions about marketing his property and all that kind of stuff. And we both kind of dove in and said, hey, the strategy is you really have to master the OTAs. You have to master being successful, creating demand, and really getting your property up to the top standards on VRBO and Airbnb. And then once you do that, now let's consider looking at a direct strategy. So let's kind of pick that apart a little bit.
Yeah. And everybody wants to talk about marketing, right? It's kind of it always has been, always will be kind of the sexy topic of, hey, how about I want to get my direct booking website up, and I want to run ads, and I want to run traffic to that site. And I want to, and for good reason. Some of us, we just want to take, matters into our own hands and be responsible for our own bookings. And ultimately the goal is to do that. Like we've got a number of properties. You and I have a property doesn't ever book on the OTAs. It's a direct booking property through the property manager. They do a great job of direct bookings for us. And we have other properties that the goal is to get a really good direct booking strategy that works, that's predictable, and you're generating your own business. The issue with that is most new investors are going to really struggle if they get there too soon. And the reason for that is really simple. And so you have to think about, when you buy a property, you've got this offer. When it comes to marketing, our job in marketing is to put our offer out in front of a certain audience, or as many eyeballs as we can get to see it, and get them to be interested enough to raise their hand and want more information, and or raise their hand and say, I like your offer better than every other offer out here, and I'm going to book your property, right? That's our goal. Well, there's a lot of things and a lot of levers that have to be pulled to do that. And this is where a lot of people that are inexperienced don't really understand. And while it's really easy online, and there's a lot of people online that talk about, hey, listen, just get this direct booking site and run traffic to it, it's not that simple. And so when you have a brand new property and you have a new offer, there's all these things that we need to do. We select our target audience. We set this property up. We make sure that we deliver a great experience for a very specific target audience. Then we've got to go and get the right photos to articulate that offer. If we don't do any of that stuff, that's the stuff that does about 95% of the heavy lifting in our marketing. And a lot of people want to skip that and then go straight to marketing. Well, the best marketing campaigns in the world are not going to save a crappy offer or a bad property that's not attractive to anybody. And so first, when it comes to marketing, you've got to dial in all these other pieces first before you even think about marketing. Now, once you have that stuff dialed in, the easiest and the most profitable way to go out is put it on the OTAs. The OTAs stands for Online Travel Agency. That's the Airbnbs of the world, the Verbos of the world, the Booking.coms. Pick those platforms and then go put your offer in front of their audience. And the reason their audience is so great is you've got millions of people that are intentionally there looking at properties, right? And so they're there and they're saying, hey, listen, I'm on this platform wanting to look at properties. Well, if you do a really good job with a good offer in a very intentional audience, that's like kind of like having a warm audience when it comes to, warm traffic or cold traffic. Well, a warm audience is warmed up to the possibility of booking a property. That's a really good thing when that's the offer that we have to put out there. If we succeed in that, then that's a really good sign that we have an offer that converts, right? If we don't succeed at that, then we have to go make changes. And we have to say, okay, did we not set up the right offer? Do we not have the right property in the right area? There's all these different things we have to test and look at. And most of the time, it's how we're articulating the offer. Most people actually do a pretty good job of naturally selecting the right properties and putting together a good offer. But most people are actually pretty bad at articulating that offer, right? And so what happens is they will see that they just kind of blend into the crowd with a very intentional audience. If you're going to blend into the crowd and you're not going to convert with a very intentional audience, I can almost guarantee you that all you're going to be doing on Facebook and Instagram is wasting your money, and nobody's going to convert, because that's a much harder audience to convert, because they're not there looking for properties, right? When you start to go on direct traffic and you start paying for eyeballs on Instagram and on Facebook or wherever else you're putting your paid ad spend dollars in your property in front of people, they're not there to book properties, right? And so they're a much colder audience. You've got to warm them up. You've got to get them hooked in and stopping the scroll. If you're not able to do a really good job of that with an intentional audience, I guarantee you're going to struggle with an unintentional audience. And that's where we really try to put the brakes on for people is go test your offer, go build a reputation on the OTAs, make sure that you're able to convert, stay top on the top pages where you're getting great exposure, you're getting 5-star reviews coming in, people are booking your property more than they're booking other people's property. I'm not talking about getting your fair share of business and getting a couple bookings. I'm saying if you've got to do a good job of getting your unfair share of business on those OTAs before I would even consider taking it outside of the OTAs to a very unintentional audience. And that's why it's hard. And hopefully that makes, when people think about it, they realize why I say pump the brakes a little bit on the paid ads. We have a 9-step process we follow. It's kind of a paint by numbers process, takes you through the acquisition phase, finding the right properties, finding the right locations, setting these properties up during that setup and management phase to deliver a great experience. And then we have the marketing phase. And the last step of the marketing phase is paid ads, right? That's step 9 of 9.
And there's a reason why.
There's a reason, exactly. Because we've got to make sure that everything else is dialed in before we take our hard-earned dollars and try to pay for ads online and then get somebody to convert. Now, we're really, really successful at that. We have an average 8-to-1 return on ad spend. So when somebody talks about ROAS, that's a return on ad spend. For every dollar we put into paid ads, we get $8 back out. It's really good. We would do that all day long. But it's because we focus on the first 8 steps very intentionally. We test our offer with free eyeballs, and they're not necessarily free. When somebody books, we have to pay those OTAs, right, for borrowing their customer base or renting their customer base, if you will, those eyeballs that are going to convert. We're going to pay them for that. But it's a lot cheaper to pay them and test things on those sites because we only pay if somebody books our property. Paid ads, you pay first in hopes that somebody books your property. And so when it comes to marketing, it's really understanding those levers you're going to pull and understanding your job in a lot of marketing. Also, the other thing that's really hard about paid ads is your job is not to go put a direct booking site that actually converts traffic, right? You've got to have a process that converts the 60 to 70% of those eyeballs that are interested in booking, but in 3 to 6 months, right? And the 3 to 5% of the people that are booking right now, they're not going to get you a return on ad spend. It'll be a negative return on ad spend if all you're doing is trying to convert those people right now today. So it becomes even more complicated that you have to have a back end CRM system that talks to them and you stay top of mind and you stay providing items of value. And how are you going to do that? What is that going to be? And so it's a very strategic plan and process that you're going to follow so that you ultimately convert all of those eyeballs and those people that are interested in your property, but not today, in 3 to 6 months. And so if that's the case, that's another huge mistake people make on direct bookings is they go out there with their owner res site, their guesty site, or whatever fancy OTA or direct booking site that you put together, and it says, hey, here's my property, here's my calendar, here's how you book it.
Right.
We don't do that, right? And because we have to be able to communicate and collect, get information from people, start a conversation with them, and keep that conversation going for 3 to 6 months before the majority of the people that are coming into your funnel are going to book a property.
Well, and I think it's important too, because we talk about experience a lot, and it's very evident that so many times we advise and talk to our members who kind of go against the grain a little bit, and they struggle, and they haven't done they're not very successful. And we come back to, guys, we've tried that. We know it doesn't work. Yeah. We know that you just can't send them to a calendar and they're just going to book. There's a process and a way. So our experience, going down this road and having properties ourselves, we do this, we know the numbers. And so that 8-to-1 ad, return on ad is real, and that's through our experience of
and
what we've done ourselves.
Of properties that are getting a really positive return on ad spend. You're exactly right. How many times do we hear, well, this isn't working. We start to peel back the layers of the onion. And then by question number 2 or 3, they say, well, I kind of went off the reservation. I'm like, well, there you go.
Right.
Stay on the reservation. The reservation actually works. We've gone off the reservation too. We go off the reservation all the time testing stuff. But we are willing to go test that stuff because I would love nothing more than having those direct booking sites convert. Yeah. It's by far and away the easiest way. And it sounds simple. There's a lot of people online that'll say, hey, we know direct bookings, all you need is my website. It's a couple $100 a month and you plug this website in, you run paid traffic. They don't work. They really don't work. The process needs to be, here's our property, get somebody enough information and attract them enough to where your offer says, hey, I want more information about that. They have to ask for more information. We start a conversation. We send them more information. We send them all these items of value, and ultimately they book with us. It's not, that's a lot more work than just sending them to a direct booking site with a calendar and website and pricing, right? Yeah. And the reason they convert like OTAs, they're like, well, I want to make my website similar to my Airbnb site where they can go look at the pictures, they can go read the description, they can go to the calendar, they can look at pricing, they can book directly from there. That's great. The issue is it doesn't work, right? It works on those OTAs because they have a customer base of millions and millions and millions of people looking at properties. And so ultimately they're going to have enough people that actually book because they've got enough of those people in the 3 to 5% range that are going to book. And they're also built to keep people's attention. The average time on those sites is 6.5 hours. You're not going to keep somebody's attention for 6.5 hours on your single property website.
Your site.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So because you don't play the same game, you've got to play a different game. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there right now, because the ultimate goal is we all want to direct book. We all want to, not rely on the OTAs so many of us are like, hey, listen, I can't control the OTAs. I can't control the rules. They're very guest centric, not as host centric as they used to be. And so a lot of people are trying to gravitate away from that. And you have to say, okay, if I'm going to, I better learn how to play that game because it's a different game.
Yeah. Good. Well, we got a question and it kind of stays on this topic. It's what is the biggest mistake you see when short-term rental owners start direct marketing with their own property? So when they start going down this path, what do you think the biggest mistake is that they make?
The number one mistake is that they think that people are going to book immediately. And they don't have a process on the back end to keep that communication going. Yeah. And by far and away, the biggest mistake is, we have monthly newsletters that go out. We have an indoctrination series that's a week long. So as soon as somebody comes into our world on one of our property ads, we send them a lot of stuff. If it's whatever area they're looking at, we have 7 days worth of really good items of value. If they're going to an amusement park, hey, how to skip the lines. Here's a way to avoid the crowds at the national park when you have to wait for a permit. Here's how we are able to skip those lines and get a fast track to the permits. Maybe it's, hey, here's some of our favorite restaurants. Hey, if you're going to be renting a car, make sure that you go here and get a 4-wheel drive because this area has a lot of hills. Don't just rent a regular car. Whatever we want to tell them about the area, nothing about our property, right? And so when we're indoctrinating them, what we're trying to do is that first impression of us, we want them to have that first impression of us, man, these guys are really helpful. I haven't even said I'm staying in their property, and they're super helpful with all these really cool things about the area because they know we're interested in the area. Then we start to send them monthly newsletters, same type of thing. What are some of the things going on in town? What are some of the things that are happening? Some of our favorite restaurants. What are some of the favorite activities in the area? And in that newsletter, our property is featured on there, right? Yeah. And so ultimately, we're staying top of mind so that when they do come in 3 to 6 months from now, and they've looked at hundreds of properties, we're standing out because we're the only one communicating. We hear that all the time. You guys are the only ones that ever stayed in touch with us. And because, like I said, the biggest mistake is most people that run down that road, they spend all this money for eyeballs, they spend all this money for traffic, and they only are focused on that 3 to 5% of people that are interested in booking right now. And they're ignoring the 60 to 70% of the people that are going to book in 3 to 6 months. The bottom 20 or 30% is never going to book, right? But that's that big chunk in the middle is where you make all your money. You don't make all your money on that people that are wanting to book right now today, and they cost you the same amount, right? The lead basically costs the same amount, and so we've got to be able to communicate with that larger group of people. And most new marketers just don't have they don't have good follow-up. They don't even have it. They don't have it set up, and they think, well, geez, I'm running all these ads, and I'm nobody's booking I'm spending money, nobody's booking my property. And we're like, okay, how many things have you sent out? What does your newsletter look like? Well, I don't have one. What about emails? No, I haven't done that. What about text messages? No, I haven't done that. And so not having those campaigns set up on the back end to communicate with those potential guests is, ultimately going to cost you a lot of money because you're not going to get that 8-to-1 return on ad spend. You're going to have a negative return on ad spend.
Well, and I also think too, and it goes back to kind of your original point when we started kind of going down this path was, being successful in the OTAs initially. And a lot of times we'll get members and we advise them and help them. And that's part of why they join Vodacy is when they have challenges, we kind of direct them and, make sure that they understand we're here to support them. But we look at their listing and their listing experience is not great. No. And the photos are not great. So not only have they not really set the photos and the experience and they're not successful in the OTAs, they're thinking, hey, the solution is, hey, let me just start running, paid marketing and ad spend. And that's really devastating to their business because now they're just wasting money on a property that isn't booking anyways.
Right. And I should have prefaced, that's great that you brought that up because I'm assuming when you say, like the question is, what's the biggest mistake on direct marketing? I'm assuming you've already gone through those processes. Sure. Really the biggest mistake is people get into it too soon, right? They go way before they're ready. And like you said, the best marketing in the world is not going to save a crappy listing. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to be able to optimize that listing, optimize the photos, optimize the way you're articulating to the guest, and really putting your best foot forward and assuming you're already booking on those OTAs. If you're not getting your unfair share on the OTAs and you're, doing better than the competition on the OTAs, you're not ready for direct bookings.
Good. Okay. Last question. What percentage of Vodacy members self-manage versus full service management?
Yeah. And so we ran a survey about a year and a half ago, and my guess is that the ratios are probably pretty close to the same. I would say we have about 10% of our members that self-manage. We're right around that 10% mark. And so we're a big proponents of that we don't self-manage our properties. I don't self-manage my property. So a lot of people are following my process, right? Of saying, hey, listen, I don't want a second job buying these properties. A lot of our customer base specifically, they're high income earners. They don't have time for a second job. They're not looking for a side hustle. They want to build a portfolio of high producing properties that are creating long-term wealth, and they don't self-manage. So 90% of them don't self-manage. Now, the interesting thing, we just did we have our 1% club meeting, the most recent inductees. We just met them, and we were I said, how many of you self-manage? And out of that group, 90% of them do self-manage. 10% of them didn't. So it's really interesting, right? To say, okay, these are the top producers, the high producers, and a lot of them are self-managing. And the reason for that is we always say is, you care about your property more than anybody else does. You're probably going to provide a better guest experience than somebody else is going to. And we get paid for delivering a great guest experience. And we found that those members of ours, the 10% that do self-manage, do a great job with it, right? And I always tell people, don't self-manage to save money. Don't self-manage because you have to, or you're not going to be positive cash flow, find another property that can support that. But if you are going to self-manage, make sure you love it, make sure you like it. And so those members, that 10% that do self-manage, they do love it. They love being in the hospitality game, and they do it because it's part of the reason they wanted to build this portfolio. They wanted to be this stuff to be an extension of themselves, and they do an amazing job of it. So it's a really interesting thing to think about, is saying, okay, at the top end, the majority of those members who self-manage have almost a better opportunity to operate toward the top of the market. Now, that's not entirely true, because my property is number one property in the market. We have top properties across different markets. I don't self-manage, so it doesn't mean you have to self-manage to be at the top of the market. But it is really interesting when we ran that survey at our 1% Club meeting, because the opposite is true across the entire Vodacy portfolio, which is close to 2,000 homes now. And so that's a large portfolio. The portfolio at the top is about 70 homes, right?
Well, I think it's a good point to make sure we emphasize is don't self-manage to save money. Self-manage because you love it, you have the time, you have the energy, and this is a strategy you want to put forward. Because if you're just doing it to save money, you're creating a second job. You're going to be frustrated. And we find that a lot of new members, a lot of new to the game, after the first year of self-managing, they get a full-service property manager because they're tired of dealing with it. So there are reasons why, and there's strategically reason why, but make sure you understand that going into the game. So
absolutely.
So, well, that's it, my man. Good. Good information, all marketing today, and super important because that marketing is a big part of the strategy. But you have to have the process. You
we haven't talked about marketing for a little while, so it was good topic, man. Good job.
Thanks.
Good job. Good job coming up with some good stuff.
Still, I want to tell everybody I didn't go to school to be a producer. So
hey, you're doing you're just rolling right into it. You did a good job. Good job. I like the topic today. So guys, we appreciate you spending your time with us. We know how valuable it is. As always, thank you for spending it with us. If you have anybody else who want to be a part of these conversations, share the show. Those things help us grow and spread the message about short-term rentals and help us all raise the bar. And if you have more than 30 seconds, like, review, or whatever platform you're watching or listening on, those things help us and continue to get us higher ratings, more exposure, and spread the word out there of short-term rentals. And so and then finally, the most important thing, early in the morning, right? It's kind of
It is, yeah. And sometimes it's hard to get focused on everything this early. What is it, about 10 or 11?
It's not 10 or 11. It's not that early, you guys. Yeah, it's like a 9 o'clock recording. So it's a little early for whiskey. But the most important thing I ask you at the end of every episode, you guys, pick that one thing you can do today. Start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers buddy.
9 o'clock a.m. whiskey.